This episode of the Royal Ramble is dedicated to the memory of Sika Anawai.
Untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. The time you hesitate is through.
As AEW opens its Forbidden Door tonight, which never really closes, the WWE prepares to send its troops to the Six. We are the North, and we welcome them with open arms. But that is next week. Before we get there, the combined rosters of AEW, New Japan, and CMLL put on a show tonight that promises to be a banger. I will have a full preview of the Forbidden Door event later in the show. Unfortunately, I won't have time to preview the Money in the Bank or Heatwave cards in this episode, but I will write up previews for the Facebook group, so be sure to check the board. And there will unfortunately be no new episode next weekend, as I will be unable to watch Money in the Bank until Sunday afternoon, and then have to watch the Heatwave show right after. But for now, here is your weekly news brief. We start with some sad news as the wrestling world mourns the passing of one of the patriarchs of the Anawai family. He was born Lieti Sika Amatuanani Anawai in 1945 and is best remembered for his run as part of the Wild Samoans in the WWE, then WWF, in the early 1980s. Along with his brother Afa, he captured multiple tag team championships across many different promotions, including the WWF. Two of his sons followed in his footsteps, entering the WWE this century. First, it was his late son Matt, who was a member of the 3-Minute Warning in 2002, and later had a run as a World Tag Team Champion with the Hurricane as Rosie in 2005. Sika's other son went on to greater success as a multiple-time World Champion, and of course, that is none other than Roman Reigns. Sika tragically passed away this week at the age of 79. WWE's Executive Vice President of Television Chris Kaiser was reportedly released this week after nearly 10 years with the company. Pat McAfee, who was noticeably absent from Raw this past Monday, revealed the reasoning behind that as the unexpected passing of his father-in-law last weekend, who had been battling an infection. My sincerest condolences extend to the entire McAfee family at this time. WWE star Shayna Baszler made headlines over WrestleMania weekend for the one-off appearance at Josh Barnett's Bloodsport event, though it wasn't really a one-off because she announced on X this week that she will wrestle another match for GCW on July 28th in New York. After all the tragedies, we did get some happy news this week as well, as WWE's Rhea Ripley and AEW's Buddy Matthews are officially married. I wish them a lifetime of continued happiness. Hulk Hogan's son Nick, who was arrested for a DUI last year, causing the permanent disablement of John Graziano, appeared in court this week and was sentenced to 1-year probation with an alcohol monitoring system in place for the first 120 days of that probation. In addition, he was fined $1,000 and will have to undergo a 12-hour advanced driving instruction course, which, if completed successfully, will not result in his license being suspended. NXT talent Donovan Dijak announced that WWE has elected to not renew his contract, and thus he is expected to leave the company. AEW has reportedly hired former WCW talent Ray Lloyd, better known as Glacier, to serve as a backstage producer and coach. Lloyd even appeared on camera as one of the agents breaking up the brawl between MJF and Rush in recent weeks. He was brought into WCW in the late 90s, and many fans during that era will probably remember the endless vignettes for his debut, long before anyone had ever heard of Veer Mahan. His character was clearly inspired by Sub-Zero from the Mortal Kombat video games. The WWE announced a recent partnership with Premier League champions Manchester City FC in an exclusive merchandise deal. And those are your major news headlines of the week. Before I get into my Forbidden Door preview, I wanted to take this time to talk about some of the other major happenings on television this week. I love the current direction that WWE is going in, where it seems that every show ends in some kind of angle or major event to get people talking about what happens next. We saw it a couple weeks ago with the Wyatt 6 debut, and speaking of that group, they kept the momentum going this week in an eerie video involving Bo Dallas. I really liked this, as it reminded me a lot of Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, where I thought they would reveal Bo basically speaking to his evil self in a mirror or something, but they didn't go that way, and I think the curiosity is the best part of the angle thus far, because we don't know where this is going. It's very rare that I will applaud anything to do with the Wyatt family because I've hated this concept for years, and especially the Uncle Howdy stuff, but after week 2, I'm more intrigued than bored. And then the show ended on a high note as well with new tag team champions. Not much of a run for Awesome Truth, but I didn't really expect it, and it added to another storyline that nobody really knows where it's going. They've been hinting at something with Liv and Dominic and possibly a Judgment Day breakup, but we really don't know, so kudos for that. And there was another major development on SmackDown this week where Paul Heyman was effectively and almost literally kicked out of the new bloodline for refusing to acknowledge Solo Sikoa as the new tribal chief. We don't know what this will lead to, and I'm sure we all have our ideas, but it is again very intriguing. Can we use the same word to describe the AEW Forbidden Door event though? Has it lost its appeal? Some say so, and unfortunately I kind of have to agree. I still enjoy the product, and I think in the ring it should be a great show. But is that enough to sell tickets? We'll have to wait and see. The main issue for me is that they call this event Forbidden Door, but we get so many matches with the same talent on TV every week. They don't really do anything to build the anticipation, so why pay for something that you can get for free? I'm actually reading Eric Bischoff's book right now, and there was a page with a story about how if you met a pretty girl at a bar and she invites you up to her hotel room, and then a few days pass and it's the same thing every night, and then on night 5 she says suddenly it'll be $100. Why would you suddenly pay when you've been getting freebies all this time and have already seen the goods? Just saying. But the show does look really good on paper. I will never understand why MJF is suddenly outside of the main event picture. They have so much top-level talent on their own roster and in New Japan, and yet they book him in a match with someone that the majority of North American wrestling fans have never heard of. Nothing against Hechicero, and I'm sure it'll still be a good match, but I don't think his association with the Gates of Agony helps one bit, and if anything, it just drags MJF to his level instead of lifting him up. Even the Forbidden Door poster has MJF shown on the second lowest match on the card, which was ridiculous. I would not be surprised if this is the curtain jerker, and honestly, it should be an easy win for MJF, and hopefully he moves on to something bigger that isn't Daniel Garcia. I did have an idea of them doing something where Adam Cole puts on a mask and replaces Hechicero midway through the match, but I think firstly people will be able to tell the difference based on their physiques and skin tones, and also not sure what Cole's status is injury-wise. Chris Jericho announced on Collision last night that the third man for his team will be New Japan's Jeff Cobb, and along with Big Bill, they will take on the three-man combo of Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata. This is another match that should be okay, but just such a waste of someone like Jericho and definitely Samoa Joe, who should be in a much higher position considering that this guy was a world champion a few months ago. Also kind of a slap in the face to Brian Keith, who is basically nothing more than a corner man, and I'm not sure what the purpose was of doing the angle with Minoru Suzuki last week. Why not just make this an 8-man? Regardless, I see the heel team going over here, and then we get the much-anticipated heel turn for Joe either tonight or in the coming weeks, once again solidifying Hook as a dumb babyface, but I'm hoping they write Hook off for the time being, and then do a feud with Joe and Shibata until Hook returns. One of the anticipated dream matches on the card will see Orange Cassidy do battle with Zack Sabre Jr. This should be another outstanding match, but Orange, I feel, is someone who should be booked in a multi-man match on a card like this. This will be interesting to call. I think maybe Trent or someone gets involved and costs Orange the match because they need to give at least one win to a New Japan guy. The elite team of Kazuchika Okada and the Young Bucks will square off in 6-man tag team action against the Acclaimed and the now legendary Hiroshi Tanahashi. I think most people are probably more looking forward to the one-on-one confrontation between Okada and Tanahashi and not so much the Acclaimed against the Bucks because they've seen that for the last several weeks. I'm predicting a clean sweep for the Elite on this show, and I think Tanahashi can afford a loss, so Okada leads his team to victory. Shingo Takagi steps into the ring with Bryan Danielson as part of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. Though I wouldn't be surprised if Takagi wins, he's not under contract to AEW, and I can't see him going very far in the tournament. Besides that, Danielson needs a win really badly, and I think this will turn things around for him as his career winds down. I'll pick Danielson to advance. The ladder match should be spectacular as well. It will be the crowning of a new AEW TNT champion, and given the participants involved, I can't see anyone taking this title but Jack Perry. Briscoe already has a belt, Phantasmo is with another organization, Rush and Dante are only in there for the high spots, and by the way, I find it ridiculous that they never brought attention to the fact that Dante's last injury happened in a ladder match. They could have told such a great story there, but no. Takeshita is the one dark horse, but there's no real angle with him coming out of this, so I think the whole match is designed for Perry to win. In the first of two women's matches on the card, Toni Storm puts her AEW title on the line against Mina Shirakawa, with Mariah May kind of caught in the middle. I think it'll come down to Mariah having to make a choice here, and she'll ultimately choose in favor of the champ, and then start a feud with Mina so Storm retains. Jon Moxley puts the IWGP title on the line against Tetsuya Naito. This should be a really good match and very interesting because it's a New Japan title on the line instead of an AEW one, so it could go either way and be highly unpredictable. I don't see them taking the title off of Moxley just yet, especially with the G1 ready to begin and Moxley not in the tournament. With the tournament winner expected to get a title match at Wrestle Kingdom, I think maybe Naito wins the tournament and then gets his rematch then, instead of winning this match. AEW TBS champion Mercedes Moné takes on New Japan Strong Women's champion Stephanie Vaquer with both belts on the line. Mercedes' 2 belts doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but I think she wins and becomes a belt collector like Kenny Omega. Her run in AEW thus far has been less than impressive, especially considering the hype train that she rode in on, but this could turn things around. And then closing the show will be a match for the AEW World title not involving New Japan talent. It will be Will Ospreay challenging Swerve Strickland. These are arguably the 2 biggest stars on the AEW roster outside of MJF, and this should be a great match, but I'm confused as to why they chose to book it on this show and not Wembley. Hopefully they have something bigger lined up for then. Given the participants in the Owen Hart Cup and MJF not being one of them, I think Swerve should retain here. He needs it more, and I think a clean win here will solidify him as a legit world champion and someone to be taken seriously. And then, of course, it's off to Wembley for All In. Here are my match predictions in the fantasy forecast. Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World title. I think Page ends up getting the wildcard spot in the Owen tournament and wins and then rejoins the Elite. MJF versus Will Ospreay. I really hope there is no chance in hell of Daniel Garcia getting either one of these guys at All In. This is the match that people want to see. Tony, give them what they want. The Young Bucks versus FTR versus the Acclaimed in a 3-way match for the AEW Tag Team titles. Jon Moxley versus Kazuchika Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight title. Mercedes Moné versus a returning Jamie Hayter for the TBS title. Toni Storm versus Saraya for the AEW Women's title. Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness, who steps out of retirement for this one-off match. Samoa Joe versus Katsuyori Shibata. Jack Perry versus Orange Cassidy for the TNT title. Chris Jericho versus Zack Sabre Jr. So that concludes another week. I will be back in 2 weeks because no show next week, but 2 weeks to review the Money in the Bank and Heatwave events. Until then, I leave you with an 8B. See ya.